Well, hold on one second, sir.
You're taking all the fear out of it, and you know that through a series you'll be right more of the time than you will be wrong. And you take all the fear out of it and just work on that basis without any emotion.
Correct. And why isn't there any emotion? When you give me specifically why you think there is no emotion.
Well, you're doing it out more of a mathematical concept and not, I think it's going to do this. You're taking it's either going to be right or it's going to be wrong, and you either walk away or stay in it.
I want you to use the words expectations in your answer. Okay.
I don't really have any. I don't have any expectations. It's either going to work or it's not.
Yeah, in other words, this particular trade, you don't know what you think something's going to happen, but you don't know what. Right. When you put money in a slot machine and push the button, you think something's going to happen, but you don't know what. And if it comes out to be the jackpot, well, hey, that feels great. You're surprised, right? When I put on a trade, I feel the same way. Literally, I don't know. I don't have to know. I just have to do what I need to do to make money on a consistent basis, which means I have to take every one of these trades. I can't pick and choose. The only reason why I pick and choose is because I think I'm right. So when you change your perspective from a trade by trade to a series of trades, it automatically manages your expectations in a positive way. I'm going to set this up for you as an exercise in a little bit, okay? But I just want to make sure we're anybody else have any questions about any of this? So you know, so in other words, what are we doing at this point then? So you know where you want to go, right? So do we know where we want to go? We want to get to a point where we are actually changing the way that we think. When you walked in here this morning, you didn't think like a pro, did you? Now you have some idea of what it means to think like a pro, right? Come on, yes or no? Come on, guys, give me some response. Okay. How are we going to get there? Now we might understand it. How are we going to get there? Well, the paper trading, yeah, well, yeah, sort of, but yeah, I'm not saying you just have the answers. I'm saying we got to have a way to get there, right? We have to have a series of steps to be able to get to this particular mindset, because what we're really talking about here is we're talking about changing the way that we think. Now, that can have some profound implications, right? No one seems to like to change the way that they think. Most traders have to go through the process. Remember this morning, the common thread between all traders who end up, being really successful is that they end up having to lose one or more fortunes, or what they defined as a fortune, to get to that point. It's because the process of losing caused them to change the way that they think about trading. Now, do you want to do this the hard way, or do you want to do it the easy way?
Easy way.
Okay, I'm getting some response here. Good. The easy way, right. We want to do it the easy way. So this is what this is all about now. This is what the last part of the workshop is about. It's about doing it the easy way. What's that? Right, there you go. How do we change? Oh, that's a good question, right? That's a real good one. How do we change? A lot of theories. A lot of techniques about it, a lot of theories on techniques. As far as I'm concerned, change is really a function of, well, you can break down to a series of steps, but really change is really a function of desire. When you get right down, remember how we took price movement and boiled it down and distilled it down to simply what? Price movement, all price movement is a function of what? Imbalance and conviction between buyers and sellers. All change is a function of desire. If the desire is there, you'll find a way to facilitate the change. And it really doesn't matter what the technique is. Honest to God, it really doesn't. I'll give you an example right here. Probably one of the most extreme examples I could come up with. You can, by the way, what I'm going to read you right now, I got off of Yahoo. And you can go Google this kid and find out more about him yourself, okay? But as I read this to you, keep in mind how this kid accomplished this. Because the scientists that investigate this, they don't know. They can't figure it out. To me, it's easy. The kid's desire was so intense that he managed to find a way. This is Lincoln, Nebraska. Bryce Mellon is a whiz at video games such as Mortal Kombat. Is anybody familiar with Mortal Kombat? I'm not into video games, though. Well, not those video games anyway. Mortal Kombat, okay? Got some people? Is this a tough game? Yeah?
It's challenging.
Challenging, okay. In that regard, the 17-year-old, and he's a little older now, this was a couple of years ago. In that regard, the 17-year-old isn't much different from so many others his age. Except for one thing. He's blind. And as he easily dispatched foes who took him on recently at a Lincoln Gaming Center, the affable and smiling Bryce remained humble. I can't say that I'm a superhero, he said, working the controller like an extension of his body. I can be beat. Those bold enough to challenge him weren't so lucky. One by one, while playing Soul Calibur 2, which is another game, their video characters were decapitated, eviscerated, and without mercy by Bryce's on-screen alter ego. I'm getting bored, Bryce said in jest as he won game after game. Blind since birth, when his optic nerve didn't connect because of Leiber's disease, Bryce honed his video skills over the years through patient and not so patient playing, memorizing key joystick operations and moves in certain games while asking lots of questions, paying particular attention to audio cues. He worked his way up from games such as Space Invaders and Asteroids into modern combat games. I guess I don't know how I do it, really, Bryce said as he continued playing while facing away from the screen. Facing away from the screen. It's beyond me. I'm just quoting him. Bryce knows this much. He started playing at home when he was about 7. He enjoyed trying to play, but he wasn't very good at first, said his father Larry, but he just kept trying. He broke a lot of controllers. When the questions of broken controllers comes up, Bryce flashes a smile and just shrugs. I used to have quite a temper, he said. Me and controllers didn't get along very well. Now we get along just fine. While playing Soul Calibur 2, Bryce worked his way through the introductory screens with ease, knowing exactly what to click to start the game he wanted. He rarely asked for help. Once the game started, he didn't need any help. How do I move? An exasperated opponent, Ryan O'Banion asked, while doing battle, which his character was frozen in place. You can't, Bryce answered before finishing him off. That's what happens. That's why I don't play him, O'Banion said after his blood-spattered character's corpse vanishes from the screen. How Bryce became so good is a mystery to his father. He just sat there and he tried until he got it right, Larry Mellon said. He can't ever complain to me or anyone else about how hard it was. Bryce hangs out any chance he gets at the Dog Tags Gaming Center in Lincoln, opened last month. Every now and then, someone will come in and think that he can beat the blind kid. That attitude doesn't faze Brian. I'll challenge them maybe if I feel like a challenge, he said, displaying an infectious confidence. I freak people out by playing facing backwards. There's nothing he likes better than playing video games. He will be a senior in high school next year after graduation. He plans a year off because he wants a break from school. And when he goes to college, he wants to study what else? Video game design. This is just an extreme example, but I think a really good one, that all change is a function of desire. If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way to do it. If you want to be able to think in probabilities because you want to be consistently successful, you will find a way to do it. I'm going to give you ways, but what I'm saying is that you will find a way. If you don't, then it's that simple. You won't. It's like almost every, let's put it, the traders, when I was doing coaching, the traders that I worked with fell into the two basic categories, and there almost wasn't anybody in between. The first category would be traders who were already consistently successful. They already knew how to win, and what they wanted was fine-tuning. So they'd go to a trading coach like myself to find some really creative ways, let's say, to fine-tune themselves where they can actually make more money than what they were already making. And then the other category was desperation and I'll do anything. The all do anything. Everyone in between, no way. And even the all do anything wasn't always sincere. Sometimes it was just lip service. Change is also a function of the degree to which we change, is also a function of the clarity of your intent. In other words, you can have the desire, but your intent has to be really clear. Because when you think about the whole concept of changing, what you're really saying is that I'm willing to let go of a certain portion of my identity, in a way. Of some part of myself that, I obviously operated out of for X number of years or months or whatever, maybe put a lot of energy into, and you got to be willing to let that go. Is it even possible to change a belief? How about it? Is it possible to change a belief?
Yes.
I mean, it happens all the time, does it not?
Yes.
Is there anybody in the room who did not grow up? This is just a simple example, a simple illustration. Is there anybody in the room who did not grow up with a belief in Santa Claus? Is it most everybody did? Just an example. If you believed at some point in your life in Santa Claus, where's that belief now? What happened to it? What happened to that portion of your identity? Because if we were all children, if we were all 4 and 5 years old, and someone knocked on that door and said Santa Claus is out in the lobby, we'd probably be jumping over each other to get there, right? And it was that belief, the energy inside of that belief would compel us to express ourselves in a particular way, a way that was consistent with the belief. If I believed in Santa Claus and someone said and gave me information and said Santa Claus is in the lobby, I'm going to be jumping over these tables to get there as a 4-year-old. Now, as an adult, someone knocked on the door and said Santa Claus is in the lobby. I'm sure I'd just ignore him. Where did my belief in Santa Claus go? What happened to it?
Just let it go.
Yeah, I don't know the underlying. I mean, really, I can't say that I know the underlying dynamics of how that energy got transformed. But I can say it doesn't exist inside of my mental environment any longer in a way that would compel me to express myself like I did believe in Santa Claus. In other words, there's no more energy there. I can remember when I did believe it. I could say to myself, yeah, there's something, or maybe even something there even now, but not enough for me to go running out into the lobby. You can say before you walked in here that you might have had a real strong belief that whatever you used to determine your edge gave you that edge on a trade-by-trade basis. In other words, I wouldn't be putting on this trade if I didn't think I was right. Now you can say to yourself, are you willing to let that go? The only way you're going to be willing to let it go, to even generate the desire to let it go, is if you're really clear about your intent. Hopefully I've given you enough insight to be really clear about your intent as to why you might want to let this go. Because it's just going to create frustration. If you like trading on a random basis, then great. Then stay on a trade-by-trade basis. And trade randomly, because it is fun. You'll win, you'll have winning streaks, but I can assure you without a shadow of a doubt that you trade randomly and you are setting yourself up for catastrophic losses. Because anything you do could result in a win, and most of the things people end up doing are just the kind of things that set themselves up for a catastrophic loss. Because you are reinforcing inappropriate behaviors. On a trade, when you trade randomly on a trade-by-trade basis, you are reinforcing inappropriate behaviors. Those inappropriate behaviors, namely, are not predefining your risk is the biggest one. You get into a trade, you don't predefine your risk, and you win. You're going to do it again. You're going to do it again until you get hit with a huge loss. And sometimes those are really hard to recover from. And in fact, for most people, they're almost impossible. Not that you can't, it's just that they just don't have the resources for it, nor do they have the desire or the inclination to do it. They just walk away. Are you relatively clear about why you would want to do this? Why you'd want to go from a trade by trade to a series of trades perspective? Sincerity. See, you need the desire, you need the clarity, and you need the sincerity. It can't be lip service. It has to be real. It has to be authentic. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say to you that based on my experience, if you're clear, if the desire is there, it's genuine, the clarity of your purpose is there, it's unconflicted, and so the sincerity is there, it will virtually happen automatically. That is the technique for change. What most people, the problem is that with most people, it takes usually a series, let's say it takes using various techniques that are available, that have been created and thought up, that over a period of years, they finally get to the point where they have the real desire, they have the clarity, and the real sincerity is there. And once all those are in place, the change happens automatically. And they would think that it happened over a period of years using techniques. But the reality is it just clicked into that, just finally the whole thing clicked into that one point where it's all there like the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, a good example would be about what I'm talking about in terms of how clear you have to be in some cases, because some of the energy that you want to move out in terms of a conflicting or dysfunctional belief, it could be really strong energy. I mean, it could be pretty substantial. When you think about it, I mean, there are traders that I worked with many years ago, especially, that were really, hardcore technicians. I mean, these are really hardcore guys that just, I'm not even going to mention the techniques they use, but it's like, well, I'll get Elliott wave casualties. I mean, they were guys that were just, there was a time in the late 80s and early 90s where a lot of my off the floor traders were what I call Elliott wave casualties, and because these are guys who just who love to analyze, and when they start understanding the difference between analysis and execution, and also the underlying dynamics of the market, it's like they had to get to a point where the realization that they'd spent 10 years or 8 years and thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on analysis and workshops and seminars when none of it was, or very little of it was really necessary. I mean, they had to reconcile all that stuff, and that wasn't an easy thing to do. That wasn't an easy thing to let go of. It wasn't an easy thing to say, okay, it was all right. I know what I need to know now, and But how do you know what real clarity of intent is? Imagine yourself being held underwater. Imagine yourself being held underwater. And as your air starts to run out, second by second, it gets to the point where you believe that if you don't get a breath of air right now, you're going to drown. That is a point at which every fiber of your mental being is aligned 100% with your desire for that next breath of air. There's no conflict. There's no hesitation. There isn't anything that argues inside of you for anything else other than that next breath of air. If you want to make money bad enough, in other words, if you want to be able to make the kind of income that you can rely on as a trader, then your desire to switch to this series of trades approach has to be greater than any resistance that you might have to stay in a trade-by-trade approach. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. It does.
degree of conviction. I just basically gave you that too. How much energy is behind your desire. Energy moves prices in the market. I mean, what moves prices? An imbalance in conviction. What does conviction imply? Conviction implies energy. Energy. I am not going to bid a price up to a next highest level unless I think I know what the hell I'm doing and that I can make the market go further, or someone else is going to come in and help me out. I have to have conviction to do the opposite of what it takes to make money, meaning buy high instead of buy low, or sell low instead of sell high. My conviction in the future has to be greater than the guy on the other side of the trade. Conviction moves prices. Conviction will move energy inside your mental environment. Focused thought will move energy out of dysfunctional beliefs. And that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about clarity of intent, desire. That is focused thought. You know exactly where you want to go. You want to get to the point where you believe that there's a random distribution between wins and losses, that anything can happen, that you don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. And that's the big one. I don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money. If you understand the benefits of installing those beliefs inside your mental environment as a core component of your trading personality, then you will find a way to do it. I'm going to give you a way, but self-discipline. Self-discipline I define as simply making a conscious commitment to pay attention to what you are thinking, saying, or doing in relationship to what you're trying to accomplish in any given moment. In other words, if, for an example, I have a goal or a desire or an objective, a desire to transform myself into someone who can think like a professional trader, someone who thinks in a series of trades perspective, someone who believes in the random distribution between wins and losses in my series, and I also know that, I may have any number of conflicting beliefs that I've acquired over the years that say otherwise, that say, even though I'm aware of the benefits of this, there's all these other beliefs that say this isn't true. This is not who I am. This is who I am right here. He seems to be making a lot of sense up here, but you know something? This is who I am. You want to transform yourself into someone who thinks this. You can use self-discipline as a technique, which is simply my objective is to think in a series of trades perspective, start monitoring your thoughts, your words, or your actions to see that they're consistent with what it is that you want to accomplish. And then simply purposefully refocus when you find out that you're saying, doing, or thinking something that's opposite or not consistent with what you desire. And just constantly refocus. Eventually you'll get to the point where you are that person. A real good example of employing self-discipline is back in the late 70s, I decided I want to become a runner. And I can't tell you why. Because I don't remember the reason why. I just got it in my brain that I wanted to do it. Now, back when I was a kid, in high school and college, I was very active, played a lot of sports. But from that point on, my lifestyle was such that I ended up becoming somewhat of a slug. And I say a slug, just, I watched a lot of, my primary vocation other than working was watching TV. And so when I decided that, I wanted to become a runner, what did I do? I went out and ran. And I found out that I couldn't. I say I couldn't, I literally couldn't. I was shocked and astounded as to how out of shape I was. I couldn't even run 2 blocks. And so, I went out the next day and only could run 2 blocks again. I thought, oh my God. And then I didn't run again for probably 6 months. And so when I ran again, I at least had enough desire to compel me to run more than a couple of days. And I found something out is that I was amazed at how fast your body adapts and improves. And so that gave me a lot of encouragement because, I ran a couple of times and I ran the third and fourth time. And it's like I ran so much further, like the third or fourth time. I'm thinking that gave me a lot of encouragement to think, okay, I can do this. And so I set this goal for myself that this was like in May. I don't remember, in May of 1979 or 1978. I really don't remember. Anyway, but I set this goal for myself that I wanted to be able to run 5 miles by the end of the summer. And at the time, it seemed insurmountable. It really did. It didn't seem like it was even remotely possible to me, but that was my goal. And so I went out and, being kind of a methodical person, I went out and I bought a journal, a running journal, and a stopwatch, and of course the running shoes and all this kind of good stuff. And so set out to just start running, and immediately ran into a set of obstacles. And those obstacles had to do with, like, it wasn't a part of my identity, because every time I said, okay, I'm going to go and go running, okay, I'm going to go run. Well, what do you think happened? All these conflicting and competing thoughts flooded my brain, like, okay, it's too hot, it's too cold, I ran 3 or 4 days ago, nobody I know, none of my friends are doing this, it might rain, and the biggest one, of course, was, I'll go after this program. And of course, I never went. So I would say that out of all the times that when I said I want to run, I would say that I managed to actually get my shoes on and get out the door maybe 30% of the time. Okay? But that 30% of the time, I was improving, okay? And I was actually getting further and further and getting encouraged. But I realized as I could run further and further, like I was up to a mile maybe, or a mile and a quarter or something, because I marked it all off in terms of like every half mile kind of thing of the course that I did. So I realized that I was getting so enthused over the fact that I was even getting that far that I thought I needed a mechanism to get the 5 miles, because I thought I'd quit. What I thought I'd quit is that if I got to 2 miles, that was so far beyond what I thought I could ever do anyway, that what would compel me to go to 5? And so I don't know why I thought that way, but that's what I did. I really did. So I established what I called the 5-mile rule. And the 5-mile rule was, if I managed to get through all my conflicting and competing thoughts, and if I managed to get through those and actually get my shoes on and get outside and take one step forward, that I had to always run at least one step further than I did the time before. And I knew what that was because I kept the journal. I knew exactly where I stopped. So my rule was, I always had to go, I could go more than one step, but it had to be at least one step. And what I found, and this was really interesting, because what I found is that there was a threshold. There was a certain threshold point at which all the conflicting and competing thoughts went away, and it was like I became a runner. It was like I didn't have to force myself to go out and run anymore. I actually felt compelled to run. And in a sense, what I did was create a new sense of identity. Like some people might call it a habit or whatever. I just call it a new sense of identity. I actually established a belief that said, I am a runner. That's who I am. You see, it's like it was people, and then my friends and family, they all thought that I was really disciplined. Because that's what I say about, most people think discipline is a personality characteristic. I don't define it that way at all. I define it as simply a technique for change. Because when we see somebody doing something that we can't do, that we'd like to do, but we have a problem with it, we just naturally think that they have the same kind of problems and that they're being disciplined in doing it. And that's not the case at all. If you're doing something effortlessly, it's because it's who you are. There was a threshold point, like I said, where all the conflicting energy just completely dissipated. And instead of me having to consciously say to myself, oh, I'm going to go out and run, I actually felt compelled to run. Then I got to the 5 miles, and then I got to the point where I was running so much that I actually had to establish a corollary belief to learn how to listen to my body, because there were days where my body was basically saying, hey, this is not a good day to run, and give yourself a rest. And that had to be all right. But for a while it wasn't, because when you start injuring yourself, then you know you're overdoing it. So I actually had to establish a belief that it was all right not to run. So it went from conflicting and competing thoughts to this is who I am. And now it's effortless. Completely effortless. There's no conflict at all. That's what you're going to have to learn, or that's what you're going to learn how to do with your trading. You're going to learn how to put on a sample size of trades where it becomes completely effortless, where there's no conflicting or competing thoughts about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. It wouldn't even occur to you to make the kind of mistakes that you typically make now. That's what you want to do. You want to get to the point where it doesn't even occur to you. It doesn't even enter your brain. Does everybody understand that example? And like I said, when you realize that you're not appropriately focused on your objective, meaning you notice that you're either thinking, saying, or doing something that's inconsistent with what you're trying to accomplish, you deliberately refocus your attention on the object of your goal. Just do the best you can. Okay. So basically, like I said, this whole section, this last section is giving you steps and techniques for evolving into a professional trader's mindset. So what you want to do is you want to resolve. In other words, say to yourself, my desire is to be a certain way so that I can make a consistent income from my trading, something I can rely on. So I resolve to stop analyzing or trying to figure out if the current opportunity to put on a trade is going to work. Resolve to stop doing that. And when you find yourself doing it, consciously refocus your thoughts that analyzing is not beneficial in any way. As a passive technical trader, you are dependent on the behavior of the traders to make your trade a winner. And you are using a mathematical formula or price pattern to predict what they will do. Math formulas or price patterns don't know the intentions, objectives, or reasons why the individual traders who are capable of moving prices behave the way they do. As a result, you will almost never know the real reason why any particular trade worked or not. There's nothing to analyze. There's just nothing to analyze. Nothing. There was back when I was in commercial casualty sales, there was a sales course that I bought by Zig Ziglar. Everybody know who Zig Ziglar is? Okay. And there was a part of this sales course where Zig Ziglar was talking about the exact right moment to ask a closing question to close a sale. And he said he's trying to get people to understand when that right moment is. And when you know where you're at that right moment, Zig Ziglar paused and there was silence. And then he screamed, "Shut up!" He screamed out much louder than that. "Shut up. The first person who talks loses." In other words, when you ask that closing question as a salesman, shut up and don't say a word, because if he said the first one who talks loses, and that was the truth. That worked. I found when I felt compelled to talk before he did, I didn't get the sale. And when I was able to keep my mouth shut and let them talk first, I did. What I'm saying to you is that when you get a signal from your methodology, stop thinking. There's nothing to think about. There's nothing to think about. Do you understand why I said that? Just put on the trade. There's absolutely nothing to think about. Just put the trade on. So you resolve to stop analyzing, okay? I resolve. I'm not going to analyze anymore. When I get a signal, I'm going to stop thinking. Resolve to learn the skill of trading without fear. In other words, manage your expectations by discarding the trade-by-trade approach in favor of a series of trades approach. Is what we've been talking about for probably the last half an hour. the pitfalls of a trade-by-trade perspective. Anything you do for any reason could result in a winning trade. The problem is many of the things that you could do that result in a winning trade could reinforce trading behaviors that could lead to a catastrophic loss. Losing streaks can easily cause one's attitude to deteriorate into a negative spiral when you trade in a trade-by-trade perspective. From a trade-by-trade perspective, you are making a choice to pick what you think is an edge out of all the other possible trades you could have picked. In essence, you are saying, I am picking this trade because I think it's going to work. When you trade in a trade-by-trade perspective, you can't help but think you know what's going to happen next because you are picking trades that you think are going to work. And therefore, your expectations automatically will not be in line with the realities of the market from its perspective. And therefore will have the potential to define and interpret market information in a threatening way, therefore causing your perception of that information to be all out of whack, and you're going to end up creating the very things you want to avoid, which is lose and make money, or lose and be wrong. You guys with me on this?
Yes.
The reality is at a rational level, you don't know if any trade is going to work because you never know for sure who's participating and what their intent is. You're guessing. See, you know what traders is? An educated guess. This is what we do as traders. Edge. Got an edge. You-cated. Guess. That means probabilities. You're making an educated guess. You've got the probabilities in your favor. That's all we're doing here. With a specific expectation of the outcome, any market information that doesn't conform to what you expect will be perceived as threatening. You will be trading with fear. If you win, you think you're right, and if you lose, you think you're wrong. In either case, you'll be setting yourself up to make a trading error on the next trade. Just think about what I just said. Regardless of what happens, if you're right or if you're wrong, in either case, you're setting yourself up to make a trading error on the next trade. Because our minds have the natural tendency to connect the past with the present. If the trade was a winner, in other words, if you're trading in a trade-by-trade perspective, and you think you were right because you won, in other words, whatever reason you use, the market seemed to validate that reason. We know now that that just is not the case. If the trade was a winner, we're susceptible to, on the next trade, not predefining the risk. Well, the last one was a winner. I knew for that reason. I knew what was happening. Therefore, the risk doesn't exist. Not letting ourselves get stopped out of a loser. Jumping the gun because you're anticipating the signal. Over trading our position size. Not booking any profits because you think it's going to go on forever. Is this making sense to everybody? If the trade was a loser, you're susceptible to not predefining the risk because you're going to gather all the information that's necessary to make sure it's not going to be a loser this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't be putting it on. Right? You're going to analyze it to death. You're going to hesitate, get in late, or not get in at all. Take profits too soon, or revenge trading by not booking any profits. In other words, whatever the market's given you ain't enough. I got to have more. The last trade was a loser. I got to have more.